Welcome to the call. We are definitely going to get started now. We got 5 minutes before we begin. I know it's been a while. Get people on, get people on, get people on, invite people to the live. Okay. You want to invite people, as many people as possible to the live. Tonight, we are going to start promptly at 8:30 Central Standard Time, 9:30 Eastern. It is 5 minutes till, and we just want to work on getting people on the presentation right now, right? So we are live. We have gone live. Let's get as many people on as possible. Let's invite. And even if you're watching the replay of this, share this with everybody. Invite. We want to invite. We definitely want our people subscribing to this, right? So get people to subscribe. Very important. And we definitely want to keep it moving, okay? So again, invite, get people in. We will get started in a couple minutes. Just go ahead and invite as many people as possible that you can get on. The more you share, the more you receive, right? And that's something that we can definitely do for free, as well as share. Okay. So we definitely want to do that and keep it moving, right? We've already been through the other workshops. We went through workshop 5, which was credit repair. Workshop 1 was understanding money, right? That was very important. That was a beautiful workshop. Workshop 1 was understanding money, right? Workshop 2 was how to legally avoid taxes, right? Workshop 3 was, apologize, workshop 3, become your own bank. That ended up being a 4-part series. That was very important to go back on and understand. Workshop 4 was increase your cash flow. Workshop 5 was credit repair. I apologize. Hold 1 second. I want you to see it. Workshop 5 was credit repair. And workshop 6 is protect your family, right? So we want to share this information with as many people as possible. Again, make sure that you're invite as many people as possible. Let me see. I'm going to go and do some inviting myself, right? We're going to invite. We will get started in 2 minutes. Invite as many people as possible. We're going to talk about protecting your family, which is the most important thing. And by protecting them, we're talking about protecting your assets. And this was a question that was asked on something I was just paying attention to. And that was, if something happened to you, right, how fast would it happen to your family? But more importantly is, most people, when they die, they're going to leave nothing but bills to their children. And really, all the things that we do, we talk about, we care about our children, we love our children, we this and that, our children. Yeah. But in reality, do you really, if you just leave them a pile of bills, you don't leave anything for your future generations, do you really care about them? Or did you really just live your life caring about yourself? And that is a real question that we're going to deal with tonight. And we're going to answer questions like those. And then but we do something greater. And the thing that I love about these workshops is that we provide solution. Solution is the key to everything. Solution is super important. Solution is something that you definitely want to always be able to provide to people, is solution. So this is the key thing that I advise everyone to do, right? Is share this video, get as many people on it, right? And let them know you're on, right? And get as many people in there as possible, right? Because you don't know whose life is going to be changed just by you inviting people to this call and them getting information that they might never have ever heard had you not shared that with them or sent that to them or got them on. Okay, so now what we're going to do now, we're going to get started. So with no further ado, right? Let's get ready. All right, everyone. Hopefully, you invited people into the show. You got it ready. We gave you 5 minutes to do that. But now we're going to jump right into this program. And I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. This is Protect Your Family's Assets. Super important. This is one of the greatest workshops to me because this is the missing link. This is the secret. This is what changes people's lives from actually moving uh, from it would be moving from being able to be rich to being wealthy, being poor and middle class to being wealthy as well. And so it moves you through this process because this is what makes the difference in people's lives right here. And that's protecting your family and protecting your family's assets, right? By protecting your family's assets. And so, as I stated earlier, was if something happened to you, how fast would it happen to your family? And most people, when they die, the only thing that they're going to leave to their family is bills. They're not going to leave a legacy. They're not going to leave anything else. And as I stated, do we really care about our family if we don't leave them anything? Do we really? If we get information and we remain ignorant, so we can't leave anything for our future generations, so they have to struggle like we did, do we really care about them? Absolutely not. And one thing you can never pass down is you can never pass down a job. You can't pass that down. You can't pass a job down, period. And so we've been doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And so what we're sharing tonight is not only what the problem is, but we're going to be sharing solutions as well. And that's the thing that I love about our program is that we actually share solutions. So no matter whether you're watching us on Facebook, whether you're watching us on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, you're watching us on LinkedIn, however you are watching us tonight, what I want you to do is really pay close attention to what it is that we're sharing because this is information that is not taught in educational circles, but rather taught at home. And as I said before on the other workshops is, do you think that we had the same conversation at home that Warren Buffett had at home with his children when it came to finance? And if your answer to that is no, then the key thing that I want you to get is that if that answer is no, the key thing I want you to get is you're absolutely right. We didn't have that conversation. And so, therefore, there's a lot of information that we missed that they've been following for 500 years. You wondering why? Well, how did we end up poor? How did they end up wealthy? And we can make all the excuses, reasons, and explanations that we want to make, right? But that's not going to produce any results. We can make all the excuses, all the reasons, all the explanations, everything we want to actually make up, but it's not going to produce any result. We have to be able to produce results. And so the workshops that we've been doing are designed to produce results. Okay. So the first thing we want to look at is we're going to look at a historical treatise on trust, right? We're going to do a historical treatise, but this time I'm not going to be doing the historical treatise. I'm actually going to have one of our experts. We've got a recording of him doing the historical treatise on trust and why it's important for trust for you to actually have a trust, how it's properly set up, and is it in the right jurisdiction? Because the key thing that I want you to get and the key thing that I want you to understand when it comes to the trust is most people's trust, A, they're not set up correctly. B, they're in the wrong jurisdiction. So even though you think you have a trust that's going to protect your assets, actually they're not because they weren't set up correctly. And many attorneys, the majority of attorneys, do not know how to set them up correctly. So I want you to understand, even if you have a trust, you actually need to get with an expert, and we have experts that can help you to actually make sure A, your trust is in the right format, and B, if it is in the right format, that is in the proper jurisdiction, so that you're not going to end up getting thinking you have a trust and then everything gets taken from you because it was developed improperly, right? Or in the wrong jurisdiction. So the first question you can ask yourself is my trust a level trust? Meaning, how many trusts are inside of my trust? If you only have one trust, you're in trouble. I could tell you that now, right? Secondly, what jurisdiction is it in? If you don't even understand that question, right? Therefore, you could possibly be in major, that's even worse. So what you want is a bulletproof trust. What do I mean when I say bulletproof? This is a trust that is actually cannot be touched, right? Your assets are actually protected. Assets are anything you own. I don't care what it is, whether it's a home, whether it's your furniture, anything you put in the trust, you want it protected. Everything you own is an asset according to the popular definition. Now, what is the term, what asset, or excuse me, what is the term of asset when it comes to our definition of asset, right? Our definition of asset is anything, or an asset is only the things that are making you money, right? And so what this brings us back to is our chart, right? This is the cash flow chart, or our income statement with a balance sheet with a couple of extra what's the word I'm going to use, components attached to it, okay? And so the key thing that I want you to get on this income statement right here is this. I want you to get that the income statement, and let me make this big for you guys, okay? Let me do that for you real quick. I want to make this big so you all can definitely see it. And so the income statement here, right? We have the income statement, the expense, the assets, liabilities, cash on hand, accounts, investments, and interest. And so we already have went through these on the other workshop, so I'm not going to go deep into them. But the key thing is we want to create assets, not liabilities, income, not as many expenses, right? We want our income to be over our expenses. We want our cash on hand. We want to move that into accounts that are going to give us interest. Why? Because the wealthy do not spend money, and the wealthy do not spend um, credit. The wealthy spend interest. In other words, their lifestyle, when they buy those fancy cars, those houses, when they're living and they're paying their bills, all of that is done through the interest that their money is making them in accounts that are giving them interest payments, right? And now they have interest payments. So let's walk through that process, right? One more time, step by step, as a family, okay? So the first thing that we're going to look at is the debt cycle, okay? So let's look at this debt cycle. And what is the debt cycle here? The debt cycle is you got some income coming in, right? Let me move my name out your way because you don't need that right now. So you have income coming in, right? You pay your bills, you're short on cash, you use your credit to make up for your lifestyle, your credit balances grow, therefore you're going to have higher interest payments, and you're going to have less income coming in. And this cycle goes on over and over and over again. This is how the poor and middle class live, and even the rich live this way, but the wealthy do not live this way. Okay, the rich can even be caught here. That's why a lot of people will become rich, but they'll lose their money because of the law of the curve, which I talked about, I believe, in our increase your cash flow workshop. Okay, and so what I want you to get is, due to that law of the curve, and due to that, what happens is the majority of people, right? If there's a wealthy 1%, then there's an unwealthy 99%. I want you to get that. Okay. Even though there's people that look rich, they're not wealthy, because there's certain things. Remember, wealth or finances or financial literacy is not taught in the school system, it's taught at home. So outside of that 1% that is wealthy, those that become rich are usually self-made millionaires, but they weren't taught financial education at home. Therefore, some of them never get it, even though they've mastered making money. We're very good at making money, even in our community, right? Because we're what? $1.8 trillion we have of spending. We have over $1 trillion of spending capital. That's after bills that our communities make. We're good at making money. We're just not good at saving and knowing what to do with our money so it makes more money for us, so we become wealthy, and now our future generations don't have to suffer like we did. So once we move from this debt cycle, right, this debt cycle, we're going to move to what's called the wealth cycle. Okay, now in the wealth cycle, this is where the wealthy live. What do? They get some income coming in, right? They then pay themselves. This is very important to get. Okay, I want you to get that. And Claire, Frank, welcome to the call. Ramo, welcome to the call. Thank you for typing in. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I do appreciate that. Thank you so much. Absolutely. But so this is the wealth cycle. So they get income coming in, but they pay themselves first, right? And this is very important. Okay. This is very, very important. All right, all right. Easy. I see you there. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And gracias. Right. So I want to definitely say that they pay themselves first, right? They pay themselves. Then what happens is they invest their money. Okay, the wealthy invest their money, and this is extremely important to get here. Okay, why do I say that? Because they're not spending their money, they're investing their money. That's a major difference. They don't pay bills first, they pay themselves first. They take the money they pay themselves, they invest it. Then what happens is they're not spending credit to increase their lifestyle. They're mastering credit. They're getting their credit score as high as possible. They're getting it all the way up to the top to do what? They're doing that so that that way they now their interest that they're being paid grows. Their bank balance grows, right? They put these in those accounts that I was talking about a minute ago here, right here. They put those in those accounts here, not a regular bank account, but a high yield, low risk bank account. They put them in those bank accounts. And then what happens is now these high yield, no interest, no risk accounts are putting interest in their pockets. That's a missing link for the average person. But what I'm going to talk about tonight is even deeper. This is even more secret than these accounts. The high yield accounts is paying 9 to 30% that nobody can find, that actually you're getting less than 1% in a savings account. What I'm going to share with you tonight about protecting your assets is even more hidden than that. So I want you to get how powerful what we're going to talk about tonight is, and share this with everyone. Get everyone on that you know. Let them know to get on this call tonight. Get everybody you know on, because we want to share the information. We don't want it hidden anymore. We want the masses to be able to get this information, and that is what we are actually doing. We are commissioned to do, and we're going to make sure that that happens. Okay, so now what happens is their interest payments are coming in. So instead of having credit card and they're paying interest and their interest balances are growing, that they're paying out to the banks, what happens is their interest is now the banks are paying them interest instead. That becomes their income, and they reinvest it, or they use that as their lifestyle money. That is extremely important. That is extremely powerful. And when you get that concept and you truly understand that concept, then what's going to happen is we're going to go far, right? So when you get that concept, you will win. Now, once you do all of that, once you have those things in place that we talked about in the other workshops, once those are in place, right? So you got your income coming in. Now you got your assets that you're building that's doing what? Assets are those things that put money in your pocket, whether it's real estate, whether it's stocks, whether it's crypto, whether it's Bitcoin, no matter what it is, silver, whether it's gold, whatever it is that you're investing, as long as it's bringing in income, because silver and gold would be in investments. That wouldn't be in assets. That would be in investments, right? Even though the world would consider those assets, according to the way that I'm talking now, those would not be assets that are bringing you residual income. Stocks that are giving you dividends. So stocks with dividends, you would have those. Those are bringing you income in, right? Those instruments, when that happens, now you got your income. Now you got that going. Now what do we want to do? We want to take that money and we want to drop that into those no risk, high yield, right? Interest bearing accounts, right? That are now going to bring you interest. Now, once you do all of that, now you can start spending your interest or reinvesting it. Now you can get the lifestyle that you want. You can actually, all those assets that you bought that are bringing you money, you never want to lose those. Those are called machines that are bringing you in money that are going to do what? That you now want to protect. Your accounts that are bringing you in money, right? That are bringing you interest. That account's going to keep growing and growing and growing because you're never spending money. You're starting to think like the wealthy. You don't spend money, you're spending interest. So that account keeps growing. You want that protected, right? Where no one can touch it, no one can come after it, no one can hurt you. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to transfer over and we're going to move into this historical treatise about trusts and having them properly set up in the proper jurisdiction in order so that they are bulletproof, so no one can touch it. No government agency, no business can come after you, no individual can come after you and take any of your assets. So if you're ready to hear that, we're going to move to that right now with no further ado. And so I'm going to bring on Roger Grant, who is an expert at producing trusts that are bulletproof, for him to share with you that information right now.
What I want you guys to understand about trust is this. It's how many of you, when you think about a trust, you think about millionaires and billionaires and trust fund babies, right? That's what we think about. As normal people, are like, what do I need a trust for? I don't have that kind of money. Well, it's not about millionaires and billionaires and trust fund babies. And the person who has very little to lose, you have some things that you've acquired, you can't afford to lose those things. And what a trust does is protects your assets. It controls your assets so that you don't have the liabilities of ownership, right? So it's a guy with a home that has $50,000 worth of equity that he wants to protect that needs a trust. It is the person with, maybe a substantial amount of cash in the bank, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in the bank that you want to protect. And here's why. That millionaire, billionaire, if he loses everything, he's got the contacts and the resources to rebuild it and get it back. The guy who just has his home or just has a bank account with a little bit of money in it can't afford to go get into a car accident and have all of that at risk over something that happened in an instant that was a complete accident. So it's not about just the elite protecting assets. The person who has a little bit that they spent building needs to put in more effort in protecting what you spent your life building. All right, so let me give you a little background on me. I'm not going to give a deep background like I gave at the convention, but I was in the mortgage business for about a decade, right? And in the mortgage business, I managed to start making money in my second year, and the IRS hit me over the head for about $50,000 in taxes, right? My CPA told me what I needed to do to keep the IRS from treating me like that, right? I ended up buying a $650,000 house. I didn't have any kids at the time, right? I ended up getting into an insurance policy that was $1,200, and I ended up buying a Cadillac Escalade that was about $1,100 or $1,200 a month in payment. And I already had a Cadillac Escalade. I did not need a second Cadillac Escalade. I didn't need a 5-bedroom house. I didn't need this monster insurance policy. I didn't need those things.
I'm only pausing this for 1 second. I want to make sure everybody is clear. Are we having, is everyone, please type in the chat if you are able to hear it and if we have an echo coming through. Do we have an echo coming through and are you able to hear? I want to make sure on that. Please type in the chat for me and I would greatly appreciate it. If not, if I don't get anybody typing in the chat, because the issue is that it's possible because I was on my phone at the same time with it because I was inviting people. It's clear. Okay, great. I will continue it back. Thank you so much.
The IRS from abusing me and taking what I was building, right? So I did all of those things, right? And then I ended up in a custody battle for my daughter right in the middle of all of this. And that cost me a ton of money. So long story short, I fought through all of this, right? Got everything paid off, got full custody of my daughter. And about 3 months later, the mortgage meltdown happened. And I had nothing left to survive it because I followed that other set, the 2 sets of information, right? And my CPA was no slouch. When I met him, he had just built a $10 million house in the Silicon Valley. He was no slouch. And he gave me the best information that he had, but it wasn't the best information there was, right? So what I want to do is we're going to jump into a little slideshow presentation. And then we're going to have a conversation about trust, just because I want you guys to become familiar with this conversation because it's for everyday people. It's not for the elite alone, I should say. So what are we doing here, folks? We're here literally trying to separate ourselves from the masses. That is what MWR Financial does. It takes you from being that person who's allowing the IRS to take too much money out of your check every month to recouping that money, right? To having a good credit score, to living a debt-free life. These are the things that the masses don't do. And so we're already in a place of separating yourself from the masses. So when it comes to this conversation of trust and protecting assets and taxes and things like that, we're going to separate ourselves even further from the masses, right? That's the goal, is to not be them. And here's why. For you Bible believers out there, this is one of my favorite passages of scripture, the narrow and the wide gate. Enter through the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is broad that leads to destruction. And there are many who will enter through it. For the gate is small and the way is narrow that leads to life, and there are few who will find it. What that passage of scripture right there is telling me is if the masses are doing it, it's probably wrong. But at bare minimum, we need to think twice about what the masses are doing. What the Bible is telling us, not just spiritually, but in every walk of life, and I'm going to show you this financially, if it's being taught to the masses, we need to be critical thinkers of that type of information. Because there's 2 sets of information, right? And if this narrow passage is set up for them, what are they doing for the rest of these people to cause them to walk through that wide gate? Now, I'm going to put this, and I'm going to use an example of the 401k and your private reserve account for those who've been with the MWR Financial for any amount of time. We are all taught to get into a 401k or an IRA. Your money's not taxed. It grows tax deferred, and then you pay taxes sometime later, right? Well, let's examine that for a minute. Is the dollar going to be stronger today or sometime in the future? If you're my age, you remember when candy bars cost you $0.25. Now they're like $1.50. So your dollars are always going to be stronger today than they are in the future. So why are we giving up strong dollars today for what we know will be weaker dollars in the future? And then let's talk about taxes. They say you pay the taxes sometime later. Okay. Somebody tell me what the tax rate is going to be in 30 or 40 years. Unless you have a crystal ball, you can't answer that question. But here's what we do know that is a fact. The IRS has been in existence since 1913. The tax rate environment that we are in right now is the 3rd lowest tax rate environment in the history of the IRS. And what we have people doing right now is giving up a known quantity for an unknown quantity and calling that preparing for your future, preparing your retirement. That's not preparing, that's gambling. But this is what the masses have been taught, which is why MWR is teaching you about the private reserve account and the diversified cash flow account that allow you to live a tax-free retirement. This is what MWR is teaching, and here's why they're teaching it. Here's why the company is teaching that. It's because true financial in this information in this country is not taught, it's passed down. And to show you that, I want to talk a little bit about our HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities. And in the Black community, they are beloved, right? But I'm going to show you how information goes right over our head and we just don't know the things we don't know, right? John Rockefeller started the United States Board of Education in 1903, and Congress let him do that. And then they had to come back in 1913 and do an investigation into what they let this brother get away with doing, because he controlled the whole educational system. Here are the two things that Rockefeller knew, Rockefeller and Carnegie, I should say. They knew that if they could control the entities that put out information, and if they can control the curriculum of those entities, then they can control behaviors, they can control outcomes, which means they can control a whole country. I want you to hear three things that Rockefeller said. You can look these up. These are Rockefeller quotes. The guy who started the United States Board of Education said these three things. Competition is a sin. Number one, I don't want a nation full of thinkers. I want a nation full of workers. Competition is a sin. I don't want a nation full of thinkers. I want a nation full of workers. And he started the educational system with that in mind. So when we talk about information, for example, the Dewey Decimal System, if you think about it, every developed nation in the world learns the metric system for math. What you're going to see when you look at the presentations on MWR, I lost my slideshow there. There we go. What you're going to see when you see the presentation on the MWR website that I put together for you guys is Dewey and Rockefeller were very close friends. And Rockefeller funded Dewey teaching the Dewey Decimal System, which is why we learn that, which is he's controlling that from the grave today. Every other nation learns the metric system. Now, in terms of institutions that put out information, our HBCUs, most people don't know that Morehouse was Rockefeller's pastor and his business partner. And Spelman was his wife's maiden name. These are two of our most beloved of HBCUs, but we don't understand where they came from. Remember the mindset of the person who started these institutions. I don't want people competing with my businesses. I don't want a nation full of thinkers. I want a nation full of workers. I don't want them thinking. I don't want them competing with me. If they're thinking, they're competing with me. I want them working for my businesses and patronizing my businesses, not competing with me and thinking like me. That's how he started the school system. So this morning I was watching ESPN as I was getting ready to go to a doctor's appointment, and it's Black History Month, and I heard him say something about Spelman College, and I recorded this little clip on my phone that I'm going to share with you guys in a minute. But you may not be able to see or hear it as clearly, so I want to caption it so hopefully you can grasp this. It was talking about Spelman College, had a young lady talking about why she went to an HBCU, right? And I want you to see if you can catch behind her the name on the building behind her where she's standing. If we can play that clip real quick. They tell us everything we need to know in plain sight.
You don't want to miss that. And the ladies of Spelman College continue to bring it as we continue our HBCU virtual tour.
My name is Elizabeth Gowans. I'm a senior history major, food studies minor from Proof, Texas at Spelman College. Going to an HBCU was important to me because I wanted to learn about the multifacetedness of my Blackness and experience true leadership as the student trustee on the Spelman College Board of Trustees and take that out into the world.
Spelman College, the maiden name of Rockefeller's wife, Laura Spelman Rockefeller. And this young lady is talking about HBCUs and her blackness in front of Rockefeller Hall. I mean, come on, y'all. We just got to pay attention. So, folks, here's what I'm going to tell you. There's two sets of information, but they give us breadcrumbs. Everywhere you look, there's information provided to you. Right there, they're telling you, why would John D. Rockefeller's name be on the Spelman University? It's because he started the university. But the goal is, as we separate ourselves from the masses and we try to win this money game, we have to be critical thinkers of information and process what makes more sense. And that's what MWR is providing to the public, because they're not going to teach it in mass. So guys, here's what the deal is. It's not about how much money you earn or how much money you save. It's about how much money you keep and spend generationally. What I want y'all to really focus on is, when we're talking about a trust, we're talking about establishing generational wealth. We can make wealth real today, but can we get it to the next generation and the one after that? Because the Bible says a wise man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. How do we pull that off? Because most of us end up in probate or legal situations that prevent the next generation from inheriting what we spend our life building. Without a trust, it's very difficult to establish any kind of a generational legacy plan. So let's talk about the IRS real quick. The IRS was created in 1913, as I told you guys a little while ago. The other thing that happened in 1913 was the Federal Reserve Bank, which nothing federal about the Federal Reserve, was created in 1913. So once they got their bank in place, then they put their collection agency in place. The IRS is not an informational organization. It's not their job to educate you on how to prevent them from collecting, because that's what they do. They're a collection company, right? So once they got their collection company in place, these are the laws they passed from 1913 to 1916. They passed 4 laws. The income tax law. No, there was not an income tax law in America before 1913. They passed the probate tax law. Almost all of us know somebody whose family's been caught up in probate and their assets eaten away by the court system because they didn't have a succession plan, a legacy plan. They passed the inheritance tax and they passed the estate tax. Now, the other thing that happened in 1913, aside from these laws that they passed, was they created 2 tax forms in the beginning. 2, a 1040 tax form and a 1041 tax form. 1040 is one that we all know because we've all filed it. Most have never heard of a 1041, and even if you heard of it, you've not filed that tax form. What they created was a tax form for the informed family and one for everybody else. 2 sets of financial information, right? Narrow path, broad path. Everybody knows the 1040. Nobody knows the 1041. But here's the point in all of that. The IRS, when you do things the way they're telling us to do it, kind of like 401ks and the IRS, here's what happens. Your money becomes theirs. Yes, I said theirs. In the proper context, not over there, not they are, possession. So we have to be critical thinkers of the information we take in, because you want to keep your money. You don't want it to be their money, right? Let's look at the 401ks. If you want to touch your 401k and somebody's popping your hand and charging you 10%, that ain't your money. It's theirs, right? So let's move forward. The elite understand taxes, right? Here's what they really understand. There's 2 things that the elite really understand. 1, they understand which tax form to file and which one not to. And they know how not to be liable for the taxes in the first place. That's it. Nothing real deep. If you can accomplish those 2 things, you can put yourself in a whole lot better tax position. So we've been talking about information. We've been talking about assets. We've been talking about taxes. I'm going to give you some information about taxes that I'm sure most of you never knew. This is Florida versus the United States Supreme Court. It says the income tax system is based upon voluntary compliance, not distraint. I'm going to say that again. The income tax system is based upon voluntary compliance, not distraint. which means you had to opt in and they can't force you to opt in, but nobody ever knew that they were opting in. And most of us don't even know when we opted in. And I'm going to tell you now, when you got your first job and you filled out a W-4 and you agreed for them to take taxes out of your check, you just volunteered. And you can't unvolunteer. You're not getting off the IRS tax rolls once you volunteer to be on them, right? So it's voluntary. It's not by the strength. What else does the court have to say? The word income is not defined in the Internal Revenue Code, U.S. Supreme Court, U.S. versus Ballard. The word income is not defined in the code. Y'all, what do we pay taxes on? How you going to tax me on something you cannot define in your own tax code? But it gets worse. IRC 26, Internal Revenue Code, Section 26, Title 6201, only provides authority for the secretary to assess the tax, not the income. So hold on. We pay taxes on income. The IRS is assessing the tax, but they cannot assess, in their own handbook, they cannot assess the income, which they cannot even define, but they have us volunteering into a system where they can't define it and they can't assess it. Right, that part. The information that we receive, y'all, we have to be critical thinkers, and we got to dive deeper than what they're giving us, because they're not going to give us that narrow path. They're going to lead us onto that broad path that ends up in destruction, and that's what happens to us financially. I'm going to read this to you. This is a court case from the, I think it's 1997 in Denver, Colorado, the 10th Circuit Court in Denver, Colorado. Out of that court case came this discovery from the Handbook for Special Agents for the IRS. It says avoidance of taxes is not a criminal offense. I'm going to say that again. Avoidance of taxes is not a criminal offense. You know what is a criminal offense? Evading taxes. Evading and avoidance is not the same thing. When you volunteer for that system and then you just decide, I'm not going to do it anymore, now you're evading. But their handbook says avoiding of taxes is not a criminal offense. Any attempt to reduce, avoid, minimize, or alleviate taxes by legitimate means is permissible. Let's break that down. Reduce, avoid, minimize, or alleviate, right? When the next word say by legitimate means there's a way to legitimately reduce, avoid, minimize, or that last word. What does word alleviate mean? There's a legitimate way to alleviate taxes. How many people ever told you that? Why are we walking around scared of these people? Their own handbook is telling them that they can assess the income, and avoiding tax is not illegal. We just got to understand the language and the systems that are in place with those two tax forms that we told you about in the beginning. There's a system that they created to help them avoid the laws that they were passing. Here's what Rockefeller said. This is Nelson Rockefeller, the grandson of John D. Rockefeller, the one whose name was on Spelman's building, right? And Nelson Rockefeller was also the former vice president of the United States of America. And here's what he said. He said, the key to success is to own nothing but control everything. If you listen to Robert Kiyosaki says the difference between rich people and poor people is poor people want to own things, rich people don't want to own anything. But what are they actually saying? How do you pull this off? So I'm going to explain that to you real quick. Then I'm going to give you a quick overview of how we deal with the tax situation. And then we're going to jump into a conversation. So the key to success is to own nothing but control everything. The only way you can have full control over assets with none of the liabilities of ownership is to be a trustee in a true trust contract, an irrevocable, complex trust contract. If you are the trustee, you control those assets, but you have no ownership liability. And that's exactly what Rockefeller is talking about. But he's dropping breadcrumbs. Like I said, they give us information everywhere. We just got to understand the language. My job is to decipher that information, to make the language more clear. So let me show you how that information right there can deal with the tax issue. I'm going to give you an overview of what we do for a business. Let's say we have a profitable business, a single member LLC, just one owner. And the business is pretty profitable. They're doing $500,000 a year. They have 300 in expenses. 200 is left over as profit, taxable liability. The owner of that company is going to give himself a K1, and he's going to pay personal income tax on that 200,000. He's going to try to write that down with the mortgage and some other incidentals. Going to pay 40, 50, 60 grand in taxes. No way around that, right? So what we do with that business is we have the owner add another member to that LLC as a member, as an owner, and that would be a business trust. And here's why we do what we do. The trust can do two things that no company and no person can do. It can either pass on taxable liability to a beneficiary, or it can give 100% of its income to charity. That's it. Those two things. It's not real hard. So here's what it looks like. 200,000 in profits. Now the owner sends that on a K1 to the business trust. The business trust takes that 200 in as income. And now the business trust doesn't want to pay taxes on it, so it distributes that out to the beneficiary, which is a family trust. Now your business just zeroed out. 500 in income, 300 in expenses, 200 passed on the K1 to the trust, passed to the beneficiary. That leaves zero. You can't get taxes out of zero. Now, the family trust takes in this $200,000 as income. And the family trust has all of its lawful deductions. It may have a mortgage, a couple rental properties. Even putting kids through college can be an expense for the trust. Let's just say the family trust has $100,000 in expenses throughout the course of the year. That still leaves $100,000 of taxable income, right? Well, the family trust can either pay the taxes on that, or the last step in the series of interrelated trusts is a private family foundation. Now, the trust that 100% tax deductible charitable gift to your own private family is zeroed out. It had 200 in income, 100 in expenses. That last 100 was a 100% tax deductible charitable gift. That leaves zero. There's nothing left to tax. Now that last $100,000 is inside of a tax exempt entity that can invest in anything that is legal and lawful and grow money tax free legally. And all you have to do, you have one major obligation from the foundation. That is, you must give away 5% of what comes in to charitable activities. That could be your church. It could be the Boys and Girls Club, the March of Dimes, a hospital, a university. Doesn't matter where you send it. This is how you take $500,000, let go of 5K, and it really didn't go to the IRS. It went somewhere you wanted it to go, something that you're passionate about. You can only do that by controlling things. And the reason Rockefeller said what he said is there's liabilities to ownership. Anything you own can be taxed to you and taken from you. We just got to understand the language and the systems that they put in place, because you do not have to be a millionaire or billionaire to do what they do.
do what they do. All right, guys. So hopefully you understood exactly what he was saying. And if you didn't, that is quite all right, because sometimes there are things you have to listen to over and over again, and it's going to sound totally foreign to you because of exactly what he said. There are two universes when it comes to money. There's a universe where the wealthy, right? It's a universe for the wealthy, and there's a universe for the poor and the middle class, as we've been talking about through these workshops. And so what I want you to get is you're going to have to unlearn everything in order to truly be able to take advantage of the information, because as long, and that's why the scripture says you have to be like a baby. You got to be like a child again, because as long as you think you know something, what you know is what was written into your subconscious mind through the educational system that told you what, that was developed to do what, make you not be able to think and not be able to compete. That was the key. So not only inside the educational system was it, we're going to deprive you, there was information given to you to make you not be able to think. There was information given to you to make you to reject that which was going to be able to make you compete. There was information given to you that was designed to actually make it where you would reject that which was good for you. And that's the key. So you have to actually clear your mind. You have to actually go into another place and say, wait a minute, this sounds unbelievable. But again, was I actually wired so that when I heard this information, it would sound unbelievable to me? Is it actually what's good for me that actually sounds crazy to me? Was I wired for that? Because almost all of us, unless you were homeschooled, went through this educational system in one form or another. And this educational system, believe it or not, has been spread throughout the world. So the concepts of wealth that would make you wealthy were not only hidden, you were literally wired against accepting truth or knowledge that would be helpful to you when it came to you. And that is a power that's such a powerful workaround. For instance, how dead were we when we look at Spelman, right, which is a HBCU, right, a historically black college or university, right, and we're looking at Spelman. But had he not mentioned that Rockefeller behind her head, right, we would never have recognized that was a subliminal brainwashing that was put there purposefully every time we walk in and out of that, and every time we see it. That was a subliminal brainwashing. How many messages do we go past every single day that are purposeful, subliminal messages designed to get not just blacks, but all nationalities, all peoples to miss information that's going to be good for them, or to brainwash you with another idea than that which is going to benefit you. Spelman in itself is the name or the maiden name of Rockefeller's wife. And that's a HBCU. That's how bold it is. But we don't even see what is plain in plain sight. Just imagine the things that are not. And so I wanted you to get that concept, because when we come back to this chart is so unconventional, right? Is powerful. And so, first of all, let me give shout outs to those that are on the call, right? So we got Frank, shout out, Ramos, shout out, Clara, shout out, Larita, Yakamiya, welcome, shout out to you. We also have April, shout out to you, Aviva, Lotus, shout out to you, Didi, shout out to you as well. And anybody else that's on the call, I just don't see you all in the chat, so therefore I can't call out your name. Right. And so this is key, right? We want to be able to do that. That's right. We want to unlearn and relearn. Exactly. Karima, I believe you were on the call too. So welcome if you're on the call. I saw you, but I didn't see you type anything in, but I did see your name show up as well. Welcome, welcome, welcome to all of you on the call. And so I want us to really look at this chart one more time with that concept. With the concept, right, that when we look at this chart, maybe the way we were taught to look at finances might actually be the brainwash. Maybe it's we are supposed to work forever, right? Which brings us to this chart. We're supposed to work forever, right? And this chart. So if we're supposed to work forever, then we're looking at this cycle, right, in the debt chart right here. We're looking at this debt chart. Excuse me, this is the wealth chart. We want that one. The debt chart, when we look at this debt chart, This is the cycle that we were purposefully put in. So how do we get out of what Robert Kiyosaki calls the rat race, right? And that's what we discussed in Understanding Money, that workshop, okay? So now we want to move to what? The wealth cycle. Then we're stuck here. Which quadrant are you stuck in? Are you stuck in the employee quadrant or the self-employed quadrant? We want to get to the business owner, but we have to get to the investor quadrant. And then we have to take these two quadrants, the business owner and the investor quadrant, and we have to actually move those quadrants, the money coming in there. We have to have a trust in order to protect it. But on this screen, you don't see trust, even inside of this. So here's what I want you to get. Even inside of the information that we're being that's being shared with us, it's still a trap. And what do I mean by that? I want you to catch what I'm saying. I'm not talking about what we're talking about tonight. I'm talking about when you're told to get an IRA, right? Or and this is a traditional IRA, or you're told to get a 401k, even though you think that you're getting out of the rat race with those instruments, that's not what the wealthy's using. They're using no risk, high yield, interest bearing accounts, not which are non-taxable. Non-taxable. Money going in can't be taxed, and the money coming out can't be taxed. It's not tax deferred. But what do they give you? They give us a 401k and an IRA, which is tax deferred, purposefully, not on accident. That's not an accident. And if the masses are doing it, then what? We need to study it to make sure it's going to help us. And after we studied it, we found it's not going to help us. Right? Now, what about the interest? I mean, what about the liabilities? Now watch this. I'm going to bring this form up. Hold 1 second. Give me 1 second. I'm going to bring up this form again. Yes. So now what about the liabilities, right? So in the liability chart, what do we see? The average person thinks liabilities are good. And the liabilities are at the bottom. Next to assets is liabilities. What does the average person think a asset is? They think their home is an asset, but their home is a liability. Why? Because it's costing them money and not making them any money. It's a liability, but what were we tricked into believing? It was an asset. Assets are things that put money in your pocket. Very important. If you structure properly, where you might have a 2-flat or something where you're getting rental properties from where you're living, that can become an asset, right? But your home is a liability. We believe the car is an asset. The car, no, that's the payment. That's not an asset. That's a liability, right? So we've been tricked into believing certain things that are liabilities are assets. And that's the middle class falls into that position. The poor usually has income and expenses, a job and expenses. The middle class will have income, expense, and liabilities, usually, the middle class. The rich will have income, expenses, assets, right, and investments. And the wealthy are going to have income, expenses, assets, investments, and high yielding interest bearing accounts. And they're going to have interest coming in. That's powerful. And so when we look at this chart and we really take a close look at it, most people are living in the income and expense category. That means you're poor. This is how you're gonna be able to, and for real, don't feel bad. Don't feel bad. Like, don't feel bad about that, right? It's just the thing that we haven't learned yet. It's quite all right. Why? Because this education is not taught in school, it's taught at home. And most of our homes were broken purposefully, not on accident. So when we didn't have, we weren't, and then the education was designed to teach us against it. So most of us have income and expense because our parents had income and expense. That's the only thing we could know. Many middle class have income, expense, and liabilities. Why? Because that's what they were taught. Income and expense. And how do we beat the poor? We buy liabilities that we think are assets. Keeping up with the Joneses. So they remain what? Broke as well. Just broke on a higher level. The rich found out income, expenses, liability, assets, and investments. I can have real assets and real investments that are bringing me passive income. That's true. But what are you going to do with that passive income when it comes in? What are you going to do? That's how we go broke. I made, if you knew how much money I made, it would blow you away. But I'm saying, but why am I broke? Because I didn't know where to put it. A bank account that's giving me 1% on my money, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to do that. And then I wasn't smart enough to actually go to the experts and get them to invest it properly, but I'd still be broke. Why? Because with the instruments that the majority of investors know is only going to give me 1% return to 3%. So that didn't matter. But now when you find what the instruments that the wealthy invest in, I ain't talking about the rich. I'm talking about the wealthy. That's another conversation. When you get in those investments, those high yield that's giving you 9 to 30%, 5 to 30% returns on your money, and there's no risk, meaning when the stock market goes up, you get paid. When it goes down, it stays flat. When it goes up again, you make more money, and then it stays flat. You can't go broke with that. And they're paying you interest. And now you can live off your interest, and now you don't have to ever touch your money and spend it. Now your family never has to touch money. All you do is amass it, and you're living off the interest. That's extremely powerful. But the last thing we had to learn, the thing we had to learn when it came to this process, right, is we have to wrap it all up inside of the proper trusts. And you heard him. He didn't go deep into it tonight, but he's an expert. That's the expert. I'm one of the experts I deal with, but he's an expert to actually put those trusts together properly in the proper jurisdiction where they are bulletproof. They can't touch any of your assets, and your children will be protected for life. And then the way that we're going to generate those assets and income, we work together to do that. When we do that, what's going to happen is you will have a machine that's making money for your generations forever. So like I said, I'm not only bringing the problem. See, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in just bringing the problem. I believe in bringing solutions to everything that I do. You will never, ever hear me bring a problem without bringing forth a solution. So if you're interested in getting a trust done properly, if you're interested in that, please, you can text me, hit me up, whatever, a consultation. We will talk. I want to know where you're at and all of that to move forward to really get this accomplished. Or any of the other workshops, you're welcome to do that. But what I want everyone to do, this is something you can do for free. I want everyone to do this for free on the line. There's something you can do for free because you need to practice. You kind of need to practice this. And I'm going to put a link in here. And what it is this is Acorns. This is a powerful system right here called Acorns. And what it is I want everybody on here. You can click on the link and sign up or whatever. But you can start with an investment, an automatic or automated investment of as low as $5 and you can set the interval of when that $5 comes out. It could be every week if you get paid every week, bi-weekly, every year, whatever. But the only thing I want you to get in the habit of is actually taking money every time you get paid and putting it in and investing in yourself. You can start with a minimum of $5. You can do $100. You can do $50. I don't care what you do. But what I want you to do, and that's great. I'm glad you're already in, April. That's beautiful. And so, but what I want you to do is once you do it, you do $5 or $10 or whatever, you're going to start seeing this amass, right? It might be slow, right? So you can start with $5 and you look up in 2 or 3 months, you had $300. And they're going to put them in investments for you, right? Their experts are going to put them in investments for you, right? I just want you to get in the habit of this, right? Now, when you're ready to really put these in accounts that are going to actually make you some real money, that you're going to actually be able to live off the interest, when you do that, when you're ready for that, that's when you ready to, you contact me and I'm gonna get you with the real experts that can do it. But if you're afraid, you need to practice, you scared, use the Acorns. Do that for real. Like, and really start learning how this system works. Because once you start doing that, you're gonna see, okay, these are these type of investments, but they're not high yield, but they are stocks, right? And other instruments that they have in there that they invest in for you. And you can determine if you want low risk, mid risk, high risk. But now what I'm saying is once you understand that, now I want you to imagine no risk, high yield, non-taxable money. Because when you pull your money out of Acorns, they can tax it. But when you deal with the accounts I'm talking about, they can't tax it. And then we wrap that bulletproof trust around it and they can't touch it. And we're going to help you to make a machine that is actually making you money while you're not working, right? Who wants to make money while they're not working? In other words, you go to sleep tonight, you wake up and there's money in your account. If you decide not to go to work for 3 months, you have money coming in whether you go to work or not. Who wants that type of money? I do. I can tell you that. I live like that. That's what I like. So if you want money coming in while you're not working, that's what we create as a machine to make that happen. And when we make that happen, that is life changing. That means if you transition or you pass, right, that money keeps coming in, right? And now your children are what? Good to go. Why? Because with your trust and your wills, you can determine what is what goes to them, what they can use, and so forth of that money that will continue that money to come in forever and ever and ever. And that is a beautiful reality that we've been blessed to be able to share. I consider it a great blessing to be able to share this with you. So at this time, I'm going to open up for questions. We had some questions that came in. If you have a question, please feel free to drop it in the chat. I don't care what, if you're on YouTube, if you're on Twitch, if you're on Instagram, if you're on Facebook, or wherever you're at, you can type in and I will be able to answer it. So let me see. I know we had some questions in. Okay, let me see. This question, I'm going to put it up here for a second. You can only, if you yourself start a business, that everyone in your family or your grandchildren can learn from the business that everyone loves and enjoys. Once this is set up properly, that is a good point. Once this is set up properly, first thing, let me go back to this chart. This is an important chart here. I didn't go deep into it because we didn't need to talk about it that much today. But this chart is important. And remember, we're all trying to move to the business system, right? Once you have a business system in place, this business will run without your family members being a part of it. So you will never have to worry about your family running your business. Family-owned businesses are here and self-employed, and you don't want to be here. You want to be here. And once this takes place, this will become an IPO, and an IPO is what goes on the stock market. And once it's on the stock market, you become a shareholder, and then the shareholders have board meetings and run it. And you don't have to be involved as deeply into your business. It's now a money making machine. And you will begin, once you become wealthy, you will begin to start having several business systems versus self-employed businesses, mom and pop restaurants and stuff like that. We'll be way beyond that. We will become a system owners versus self-employed. And when that happens, you're not even going to have to touch the business, be in the business or anything like that. You, of course, your family name will be into it, of course, if you started it. But business systems will be key. You might own several franchises at this point, and so forth, as you begin to grow. And then you'll take that money and drop it into your investments or the high yield accounts that are going to give you residual income or passive income for the rest of your life and your children's life and your children's life, right? So you won't be working, your family, they won't be working like that. They'll be doing what they like doing. So if they decide to get a job, they're doing it because they want to. If my child wants to do this or do that or whatever, they can do that because they want to, not because they're trying to pay bills, not because they're not stuck in a situation where they are actually compromising their spirit, their life, what they believe, because they need to make money. That's the difference. And so you're not even going to have to worry about that. You guys can have a family business if you want to, but really business systems is what's going to be more powerful, and that's what's going to produce the money. See, a lot of people you have to realize that money, that a business, let me ask y'all this question. What is a business? What is a business? Right? Type that in the chat. Anyone that has the answer. What is a business? And this is an important question. What, and I'll ask it this way, what is the purpose of a business? What is its purpose? Does anybody know? If you do, type it in the chat. Correct. Our teachers were they were caught in the same trap we were. They wanted to help us. Many of them, they wanted to care about us, but there was no way out. There were the information that they needed to help us, they didn't even know, because it wasn't taught to them. It was impossible for them to help us. That was a good point, Aviva. But here's the deal. I want us to really consider what is a business and what is the purpose of the business. A business is a money generating entity. A business is a money generating entity. That is all it is. That's it. It don't have no other purpose. A business is designed to make money. You can use it as a tax shield, right? Yes, that's true. And we do. That is a purpose for a business, as a tax shield. But the key reason for business and the key purpose of business is it is a money making machine. That's its job, right? Now, so we want to be in businesses that make the most money. Why? Because now we can take that money and invest it and create assets that are going to bring in more money, so that we can do what? Put it in those high interest bearing accounts that are going to bring us interest. So everything that we're dealing with, all of our assets, everything that we buy is going to make us money, so that we don't have to work. We can do the things that we're supposed to be doing, right? Some of us would like to be playing music. Some of us like to be, some of us would like to be playing sports. Some of us like to, whatever we want to do. Right now, our children don't have to think about making money. We can really focus on them and their talents for real. Right. So, just saying. And so, this is the information. So if there's no other questions, do we have any other questions at this time? If there's no other questions, I'm gonna go ahead and close out. I appreciate everyone for being on the call. We had a very good call. We had a lot of participation tonight, and I'm so happy that everyone did show up. Right? Exactly, Dee, to make money. That is the purpose of business. You got that. You got it right. And I saw your comment later, but that is exactly right. That is the purpose of business, right? They're going to tell you that the purpose of business is to help people and all, and it is. You must provide a service to others, and you can serve more people at business. And I teach a whole piece, and I haven't talked about this. I teach a whole piece on uh being poor is selfish, and it is. Being poor is the most selfish thing you can do, is be poor for real. It's like super selfish because you can't help anybody, including yourself. Right. So being poor is selfish. It is. But the key thing is that if I'm an employee, right, how many people can I actually help or serve? I can only help those people in my vicinity. But when I own a business, right, I can help massive people, especially when I own a business system. I can help massive people, right? So as long as the product that I'm offering is holistic, it's going to be something that's going to serve and help people and the environment. As long as it is, me having a business system is much better than me being an employee or having a small business because of the number of people I can serve. But the purpose of the business is to make money. Let me be clear with you. And the purpose of that is so that I don't have to make concessions with my business. My business, I don't have to make any concessions because I have the money coming in where money's not an issue for me. So I'm not making concessions out of I need to make this money. Right? No. No, now you can remove stress. There's a lot of things. It helps your health. You're going to remove stress. And the four components to wealth is what? Enough money to take care of you, your family, and future generations. Two, what? Your health. Three, your time. Four, a philanthropist effort where you're helping people around the world. And you heard them about the trusts. You can take that trust money and do what? The foundation trust money that they will create for you. And now what happens is you're going to what? Take that money and you can now help people anywhere in the world that you want to help and build any foundation you want to build. And this is not hard. It does not take a lot of money. What it takes is just a small change in the way that you do things and the way and your understanding in it. So with that, it doesn't look like we have any more questions. I appreciate everybody's time. I will talk to you all later. Do me a favor, go to our YouTube page and subscribe, please. Go to our YouTube page and subscribe. I need as many subscriptions as possible. It helps us greatly to be able to spread the message. And what it does is the more subscribers that we have on our channel, the more this information will spread. Like the algorithm for YouTube, the more subscribers, the more it will spread. So I need as many as possible. I will be doing a subscription run coming up shortly where I will just be doing a YouTube subscriber run. But our YouTube is picking up. We've had over 3,000 hits in the last couple of days, which is very good. 3,000 views of our videos, and we're going to keep growing and growing and growing. And so I just need everyone's support to be able to do that. Okay, so please subscribe, like and subscribe to our YouTube, like our Facebook. If you're on my Facebook page, Daweed Israel Credit Repair, follow please. That helps greatly as well. And I appreciate each and every one of you for doing it. And like I said, I will be running a subscription run drive coming up shortly. Pray that all of you are there. Good night to you all. Have a great evening. See you all. At the top, I love you with a perfect love, and there's nothing you can do about it. Peace.